Thank you for joining me today. We will be handling the ticketing or case management system, as you might call it, on Antly. What I'll be doing through that is I'll just, do getting started with it, setting up the ticket categories, configuring the category schema, building the ticket workflows, configuring ticket objects, and then we'll have a run through. Actually, we're going to have a run through, as we move along every single step. All right. So first thing first is once you log into Antly, you most likely have the dashboard as your homepage. What you do next is if you click on tickets, you can open the ticket and enter the description of the ticket, select the category, put the time and event. A ticket can be tied to any object. By default, we have customers, but you can also tie tickets to an asset or any custom object that you might have created. And then you then select that specific object. Once you've chosen the object, you can select the record of that object itself, and then you have advanced areas where you can put in the priority of the ticket, assign a ticket to a staff member if necessary, and then you can also add the expected completion time. Again, if you notice, we can't create a ticket yet because we haven't created any category. So that takes us nicely into creating the ticket categories. So to do that, click on ticket settings here, and then we're going to create a category. Now, the categories of the ticket will depend on the sector that you are in. If it's finance, if it's banking, if it's hospital, if it's fleet management or asset management, oil and gas, depending on the sector. But again, I'm going to use insurance for this specific test. And I'm going to create, two categories and, also create some subcategories, for that purpose itself. So let's imagine that we have a category called claims. And then under claims, you can then create two subcategories. I'm going to create the first one called auto claims. And I will create another one called, home claims. All right. I'm going to find another, I'm not in insurance. I'll find, another type of category. So I have here policy service requests, but that's going to go into the category itself. So policy service request category, and it could be things around policy changes or bill and payments. I'm just going to create policy changes, billing, as an example. So these are just, kind of like structure that you can use for your company. Again, this is while I'm dealing with insurance here, it could literally apply to any. So I'm going to click on claims. We're going to go to auto claims. Something to note is you are also able to walk through creating like a structure for each of your categories. So if we went to tickets now and we open the ticket and we selected claims and selected auto claims, what you can literally do here is, say something like customer, or rather, the customer was involved in an accident. The vehicle was AAOO, blah, blah, blah. But we don't want to do this. What we want to do is to be able to provide a kind of like form structure where when an auto claim is being logged in, that's all the details that you expect. It's not just mumbled in the description, but it's actually added into the form structure itself. It actually allows for, further down analysis and things like that. So for instance, once that form structure is created, you could build dashboards or, generate reports specifically based on certain things that you've done there. So we're going to be doing that, and the form structure itself is structured on the subcategory. So to do that, we click on the ticket settings again. We're going to navigate into the subcategory itself. We're going to add a form section. So here, for instance, I have an example. So I have auto claim details as an example for the form for the section itself. First thing I want to capture there is location of the incident. Location of the incident. And we're also going to capture sort of like the police report maybe the police report number or reference number, police reference number, if any. Let's do that. We are also going to capture involved parties. Maybe we should, maybe we should have a long text for that. So I'm just saying involved parties. Okay, lastly, we're going to capture the vehicle reg. Again, if you have an object called vehicles and you're logging this against the vehicle itself, there will be no need for that. Or if you're logging it against assets, there's also no need for that. But in this case, I'll just do that for completion. So I've selected the text box for that. Okay, cool. Maybe I want the vehicle registration to be the first one. Okay. Yeah, then you can create as many form sections as you want. Again, this is just an example, but you could have hundreds and hundreds of fields if you wanted that. But we're not going to do that here. So next thing, we're going to go to home claims. And what we're going to do in home claims is home claim detail. All right. The first thing we're going to capture is location of. So this is home claims. Actually, you know what? That was not what I wanted to capture here. I was going to capture. It's a home claim actually, but I want it to be. Yeah, home claim can be a category, but this is a water damage claim. So I'm just going to say, let's change the what do you call it? The name of the subcategory to just call it water damages, something like that. Yeah. So if I come back here, let's change the section to water damage detail. Yeah, water damage detail. And here I'm going to say location of the water damage will be the first one. Again, it could be a choice field if you wanted to, just to show you the versatility of this. So you could say location of the water damage. I'm going to say let's create two. So let's say kitchen or basement as the options there. Let's just test that. Okay, that's looking good. Then we have cause of water damage. Again, I'm going to use another choice field for that. So this is cause of water damage. All right, let's say we want it to be pipe bursts, flood, or roof leak. Cool. Again, just test that. Okay. Then the last one is maybe a long text for immediate action taken. It's action taken. Good. All right. So now we've created our structure here. Now, if we go back to ticket and we go to open the ticket and we select claims and we selected auto claims. So we're going to see a form for auto claims where we enter vehicle registration number. So again, this is much more structured instead of just mumbling it up into the description field. Same for home claims, right? You know, you could then have where you want those specific things to be done. It allows for analysis later. If you want to analyze the number of water claims in the kitchen or pipe burst or stuff like that, you can easily do that with the dashboard. But yeah, so typically that's how that works. But we're going to let's just create one for home claims. So customer called to claim damages based on water, based on the roof leak. Okay, I'll leave that there. Let's say they called yesterday. We're just logging it late. They called around 12:30 yesterday. The customer's name in this instance is Bob. I'm going to leave all of this empty. I'm going to say this happened in the kitchen and the water damage was a roof leak, obviously. So immediate action taken. Buckets. Where? Well, let's see. The water was mopped out, and buckets has now been kept keychain to trap in extra cages. Right. Okay, cool. So, well, let me just say this is high because of this. And I'm going to click on save. Now that has been created. So this is a insurance claim tied to Bob in this case. There's ticket details, ticket description. The priority is currently high. Last updated obviously now. And then we have that, which is now the detail based on this specific subcategory that we created, that we created this ticket on, which is home claims. So we have that. Okay, next up, we're going to handle workflows and configure a workflow for this, for the ticket. Pretty much the way workflows work is, depending on the subcategory, it could mean different or a different structure as to how you handle it. So the way you might handle a water damage and the teams involved in that might be different from the way you would handle an auto damage, as well as the teams and the processes that are involved in it. Antly allows you to be able to configure the entire structure depending on what your organization does. So we're going to just dive deep into it. So if I go into workflow management here, right, and I'm going to configure a workflow. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to say, in this case, I want to say water damage claim workflow. So that's the first workflow. Again, you need to tie that workflow to a specific ticket subcategory. So in this case, I'm tying it to water damages under home claims. So once I do that, that workflow is created. The next thing I want to do is create a version any given point in time anyway. So it's always going to capture the active one. So in this case, I'm just going to create a version 1 of this. I'll leave it as unpublished. Again, you can always unpublish any workflow any given time you want. If you just don't want things to happen, or there's an issue, you could just unpublish it. So once you open the studio, the first thing we have is this toolbar. What this toolbar does is it just has all the different types of node which you can just drag and drop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to then start configuring what this workflow will look like. For a ticket workflow, we don't use triggers because the triggers are already done. The trigger is automatic, is when the ticket is created. So we're just going to use start. So start of the workflow as sort of like the trigger. In objects, in a different video, you'll probably see how we use triggers for those. What we want to do for this is we want a first task. A task can also be, you can also think about a task like a wait node. What we want to do is we want a staff. So once a ticket is created on a water damage, or a ticket is logged on a water damage, we want to assign a task to maybe it could be a team or an individual. In this case, I have not configured any team, so I'm just going to create that individual to do something. So in this case, I have review the damage, or review the damage claims, something like that. So anyway, this is the name of the workflow step itself. I'm going to put that same thing here, and then the content should be the full task description. So review the damage claims from the customer, and reach out to them if necessary. Something like that. Okay. So I want to, so again, you can assign this to a team or an agent. In this case, I'm assigning it to an agent. An agent is literally a user, which just means you could add a couple of subtasks in there. So let's just create a few. So review damages, and I have another subtask called custom, just to ensure that a user does this too and checks it before it goes through. And let's say that we want as part of our SLA agreement with customers, this needs to be done in 1 day. As an example, again, you have hours, minutes, whatever you want. So I'm going to save that. However, one other thing that we can also do is, Antly allows you to provide workflow fields, form fields, right within the task itself. So when I'm reviewing these damages, for instance, I don't need to go to the ticket to approve or do something. I can do that right within the task itself, so that you can go to the next stage, because we're going to have like a decision node next. So let's create something here. You're going to see it in the Jiffy, but let's create something here called review and claim review. And then under this claim review, I'm going to say yes to a yes no, approve or disapprove this claim. Right. So approve or disapprove this claim. That's going to be yes or no. So now the next thing that we need to do is to then drag a decision node. But before we do that, because we've created a sort of like a node questions in here, we need to refresh this so it takes effect. And I'm going to drag the decision node next. Right. So once we do that, we're going to say it's approved. Just use that name to make it clear. And then I want it on all criteria. Again, it could be any criteria, meaning any criteria that meets that condition. So in this case, it's a workflow question. So it's going to be workflow approve or disapprove. So you can see that you can choose that from the ticket itself, where you have based on the deadline, when the ticket was created, or some of the dynamic ones we created, which are things like action taking, cause of the water damage. So I could, we could only handle if this meets a certain criteria within the ticket itself. So if the cause of the water damage is a roof leak, then go through this step. If it's a if it's flooding, do something, otherwise don't do anything. But I'm not going to choose that in this case. I'm just going to choose it within the workflow itself, which is, if it's approved or disapproved. Again, because it's a select drop down, it's first the filter type, and then we can then compare it with the value. So I'm going to compare it with a yes here, and I'm going to save that. So once it's saved, I'll drag that down there again. Again, we want 2 tasks. So I'm going to create 2 tasks here. One is going to be around, this is more going to be release funds. So if yes, release funds to the customer. Again, I'm not going to go into details here anymore. Just send that again to Bob. Right, and I now have the second one, which is contact customer. So literally want to just tell them it's not been approved, but do it in a nice way. So contact customer for disapproval of the notification. Customer to explain why their claim has been declined. All right, something like that. Again, I'm just assigning everything to one user because only one user has been created on this platform. So once it's a no, do this. Once it's a yes, do that. You're going to see how all of this comes together in a minute. Then the next thing I want to do is terminate. What the terminate or end of workflow does for a ticket workflow is that it forces the ticket to close. So sometimes you might have tickets that are just open, even though everything has been done on it, it's still open, and that's because someone needs to remember to go in there and close the ticket. And this is for very big organizations. But with Antly, for instance, once all of these steps have been completed, then the tickets automatically close once it hits this end of workflow node. So let's just look through this and just be sure that we are all good for the structure. So this is fine. This looks okay. So it's assigned to Bob. Yeah, this was assigned to Bob with some subtask in it. And yeah, and this is also looking good. So the next thing that we need to do is go back to workflow management, and we're going to just publish that. So what's going to happen now is every single time we're going to create a new workflow damage, we're going to see that it's going to create a task automatically without, without any extra effort or any extra thing from us. So I will go into the previous ticket just to show you what that looks like. So if you notice here, we have no task here. Even if I clicked on all tasks, there are literally no records of tasks here. But if we're to create another ticket now, without doing anything on the task with the same details, automatically a task will be created or generated for that purpose. So let's do that and let's test what that looks like. So this is claims, what the damage is. So I have a description here of new customer water damage requests. So this happened in a kitchen. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Flooding in London. And yeah, they just called now to report this. Sorry, 1300. And that was to a customer called Bob again. I will leave everything empty and I'm going to save that. The moment that is saved, to know that our workflow has worked, all we need to do is to click on tasks and you can see that the task has already been created. So I have a task that was generated by the system itself to Bob, and again, it's added linked associations in there, meaning the customer and the ticket. Just in case I open this from, typically, let me just go there. So if you open this from the generic task page, let's see. So that will be under all tasks. Yeah. All right. Sorry. I was looking for the task itself. That's the task itself. So if I click on tickets, it just takes us right into it. And here you're able to see that task that was created. Now, the difference is when you click on the task itself, unlike other tasks, you'll find out that there's a workflow section that's open in here with some instruction on what to do. You could also do that from the My Task page as well. So if we came back here as well, you'll also see that. But let's do that within the ticket so I can show you other things. So if we go back to the ticket and we go to tasks, and then we see that what this does is it makes and brings all the actions that a user needs to do into one place. So in this case, for instance, once I'm done with my review, I could just click on yes, meaning that I'm approving this, and you have to mark as complete. Reviewed the ticket and all looks good. What I expect is that another task will be created assigned to Bob based on what we have configured before for release of funds, because I have said this is a yes. So if I click on process, so it says task cannot be closed because subtasks are yet to be completed. That's good. So if I come here, I could just complete all the subtasks, come back here again. Reviewed. Looks good. So I'm going to mark as complete and do that. So now that task is done. So if you come back here, you can see I now have release of funds. Again, it's showing the due date is just now because I didn't put any sort of like SLA time. But yeah, it needs to be done. Release of funds, which is the next one. Again, we had created a task with this detail. We didn't add any workflow question if you remember when we did that. So here, funds has been released, singular. All right, so now that's done. If we refresh this ticket, we should expect that the ticket is closed. Yes, the ticket is automatically closed, and we didn't have to do anything to close the ticket. That's because all the different parties that need to do things within that workflow have done that. Again, just to review or recap, just to revisit what that workflow looks like. When the ticket is opened, there was the first ticket that was created, which was to review damages. When we reviewed the damages and we said yes, this was evaluated automatically, and then it created the next task for us to release funds, and then we release the funds to the user. If we said no, it's going to come through to contact the customer to tell them in a nice way that their claims have been rejected. But typically that's how the workflows work. And yeah, this can be at any level of complexity. I've worked with clients with very serious level of complexities in their workflows, with dynamic data and merge information that you might also want to add within each step. One of the things that I also didn't mention here, I'm not going to take so much time to do that, but you can also add action nodes. What action nodes do is it allows you to be able to, sort of like push certain actions on certain objects. I could, select an object, in this case, maybe a notification, and an action to send an email automatically to a user. And then you can put the email subject there, and who you want to send to. You could select, a customer, for instance. In this case, you want to sort of like disable the customer because of something, within the ticket itself. Maybe they've made a false claim or whatever it is. You want to change the status or whatever you want to really do. You can actually do most of that here. You could also create a ticket a task. In this case, to be a wait node. It's just going to be a task that just be triggered as a one-off, and so on and so forth. But again, that's not what we wanted to do here, but just showing you the possibilities. So finally, what we're also going to do is to look at the workflow activity audit trail. That just shows everything that happened on the workflow while it was being run. To do that, just click on workflow within the ticket itself, and you can see what happened. Again, the time that was completed, the comments that was left on that, the general comment that was left on that, as well as the answer that was, or the value that was submitted against the fields that were created on that specific workflow. So in this case, we had the workflow took two major portions, which was review the damage claims. In that case, the user who logged it said, they reviewed it and it was all good. They approved it. And the next thing was funds was released, and then there was a comment left that the funds, were released. So this can actually really help you in managing, especially very complex workflows where you have hundreds of steps, to complete, certain or to actually fulfill certain obligations of your cases. You could, come back to the workflow activity to see every single thing that happened throughout that journey, from when the workflow, or from when that ticket was opened till when it was actually closed. Thank you.